Right, so this question is, what is narcissistic personality disorder and how does it show up in people's behavior?
Oh dear. And the first thing we really need to say, and we really should say, is that this is yes, this is a clinical diagnosis, and my brain froze for a moment there. It isn't just a word for someone who's vain or obsessed with selfies, you know?
Right, exactly. Narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, sits in the cluster B personality disorders, so the dramatic, emotionally erratic personality disorders. And in the ICD, it's described as a long-term pattern of grandiosity, constant need for admiration, and a lack of empathy. It's not situational, and it's not temporary. And it usually begins in adolescence or very early adulthood, and it becomes a
Right.
very fixed way of relating to the world.
Yeah, 100%. And a lack of empathy. We do have a conversation about this, you and I, don't we? But the point being really that it isn't mild. You know, we're not talking about
No.
something small, and it doesn't mean that it also doesn't mean that they don't know how to use empathy to get what they want. You know, they
Oh,
understand it.
they're very easy. They're well able to weaponize
I mean,
empathy.
hugely able. It just doesn't impact. They can turn it on and off, essentially.
Yeah.
It doesn't impact how they behave towards other people, and so that then often translates into outright abuse. You know, partners, children, even colleagues may be treated as props to feed the narcissist's ego. And, you know, the thing about it is that at first it can feel completely intoxicating. What, you know, people, including myself, might call the love bombing phase. You know, they'll idealize you and make you feel like you're the center of their universe. But that just doesn't last, and it's not founded on anything at all. So it's not. There's no knowledge that you're what they are telling you are. But once you're hooked, once you're caught in that trap, the devaluation starts, doesn't it? The constant
The honeymoon period
criticism.
ends.
Oh, yeah, and it really ends because it doesn't just peter out and things stabilize. This is a total abrupt change in behavior. So we've got that criticism, withdrawing affection, mocking, humiliating you potentially in front of other people, all
Yeah,
of it.
uh, exactly. And that cycle is it's essentially called a pattern of unstable interpersonal relationships. You see the same features again and again and again: idealization, devaluation, discard, and the underpinning of it all is the need for what's often referred to as supply or
Yes.
narcissistic supply, which is attention, admiration, and actually a lot of the time even fear. You know,
Yes. Oh yeah,
anything that
anger as well.
reinforces, and anger as well, yeah, anything that reinforces their inflated self-concept.
Absolutely. I mean, it's literally anything that they want. And if that, you know, when that supply is threatened, you can get something called narcissistic rage. You know, it's the
Right.
sense of superiority often. And it's not just snapping, that we're not talking about just it's an explosive anger. It might be intimidation. It sometimes can go to violence, although it's harder to deny that that's bad. So don't often see it as much. But it's awful, that narcissistic rage. And so partners will describe things like walking on eggshells, never knowing what will set that person off. And children who are particularly driven to survive may grow up hypervigilant and always scanning for danger, that kind of constant unpredictability. That can lead to trauma bonding, where despite the abuse, and that you're being abused, you feel trapped, almost kind of addicted to that cycle of highs and lows, and yeah, it's awful.
And clinically that fits because the exaggerated self-importance, the sense of entitlement, the exploitation of others, arrogance, basically, combined with that rage when their status is challenged, and you have a disorder that's both extremely pervasive and extremely destructive.
Completely. I mean, so destructive. People coming out of these relationships will often carry very, very deep scars, especially where it's a parent concerned. You're talking anxiety, depression, really complex trauma, and they may doubt their own judgment, emotions, everything, after years and years of gaslighting. Now, even in workplaces, the impact can be really serious. You're talking about bullying, undermining, stealing credit, discarding staff when they're no longer useful, sabotage often. Um, it's corrosive wherever it's appearing, right?
It's true. Now, in forensic work, narcissistic traits, they're not uncommon. But we have to say that not all narcissists are criminals, and not all criminals are narcissists.
Right.
But of course, the overlap exists,
Of course.
exploitation, manipulation, lack of empathy. I mean, these are very useful tools for fraud, coercion, or violent control.
Right, 100%. But this is exactly why we need to be really careful to kind of resist the casual use of the word narcissist.
I mean, it's a
Online,
hugely popular word now.
I mean, constantly being thrown at. The minute you put yourself first in any scenario, it's you're a narcissist. Well, no, not necessarily like this.
No.
No. So online, it gets thrown at anyone who is selfish or unpleasant, but it's not really accurate at all, because true NPD is fairly rare. It's I think it's 0.5 to 1.5% of the population, and it's not just kind of unpleasant. We're not talking about someone who's just a bit me first.
Who's an asshole.
Who's a bit pick me or whatever. But, this is devastating. It can be utterly devastating. And if you lived with it, you'd know it isn't about vanity. It's about fear, control, and survival, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, you can't confuse it with confidence or self-assurance, which people do. They will say that very confident people, oh, well, they're narcissistic. No. NPD isn't adaptive, it's pathological.
Right. We're not talking about that, are we? It's, people that get caught in the orbit pay the heaviest price for it, don't
Yeah,
they?
which is the real tragedy of it all, isn't it?
Awful.
Because it's quite difficult to spot from the outside.
100%. And therapists often say that we're dealing with the people who are the victims of the people who should be in therapy.
That's
they never come.
100% right, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.